I'm Jan.
And I'm Tracy, and we recently completed an Antarctica cruise aboard Atlas Ocean Navigator.
Yeah, now a little bit of a spoiler. This trip ranks as the very best travel experience we've ever had. But we've also learned that nothing is ever perfect.
Now, we understand that cruising is a personal experience and two people can have completely different perspectives of the very same cruise.
So these are just going to be our observations of the Atlas World Navigator and our cruise to Antarctica.
So to discuss this review, we are going to examine the ship and cruise using a series of categories. And then we're going to give you our top 3 things that we liked and the 3 things that we liked that wish that they would have done a little bit better.
Now, the categories we're going to be looking at are how we got to the ship and the boarding process, the ship itself, the cabin, the service, the food, the entertainment, and of course, our experience in Antarctica.
Now, usually we do not review the boarding. However, we do have a video on our boarding, our pre-embarkation day. But the pre-cruise was an essential part of this particular experience. And how it started was we flew from Houston to Buenos Aires, and then we went and we got ourselves to our hotel, and that's when Atlas really started to take care of us. We stayed at the Hilton right downtown by the river, and then we got up the next morning very, very early. We had a morning bus that took us to the airport.
As Tracy said, once we got to the Hilton or the hotel, we were totally in the arms of Atlas. We actually, that evening, we put our bags out in front of our room, and our luggage was actually already put onto the bus when we left. And the reason is because we have a charter flight from Buenos Aires Airport all the way to Ushuaia. This again was very, very seamless. Now is on Bondi Airlines, which is kind of the Spirit Airways of Argentina. And when we got to Ushuaia, our bags were already being taken to the ship. Instead of, we went onto a bus, and we had an included excursion of the Tierra del Fuego National Park, which was absolutely great views, a great tour guide. It was just a really nice way to start this trip off.
And so after we got done with the excursion at Tierra del Fuego, the buses took us back one by one to the ship. And this was probably the easiest boarding I think that we've done in a really long time. The bus dropped you off right at the gangway, and they brought us up in groups of 5. And then we went through the door, we showed our passports, they handed us some champagne, they handed us our travel documents, and it was that fast. I think maybe 15 minutes total for everything.
Yeah, the entire boarding process, in fact, that entire evening was fantastic, except for one thing, which was the muster drill. And if you've cruised since the pandemic, you know everyone's kind of gotten a bit spoiled with how they do muster drills on most cruise lines, where you go to your muster station, you have your card scanned, and then you go watch the video up in your room. But that's not how Atlas does it. Instead, Atlas does it the old way of you have to take your life preserver, you have to go down into the lobby or the atrium area, you have to put it on, and then you have to basically listen to the briefing there. Unfortunately, this was a 1-hour experience. Part of that was to do with the fact that about a third of the ship was Chinese, so the entire thing was translated from English to Chinese, and then so you go back and forth. I understand, I think, why Atlas does it this way. After all, you are going across the Drake Passage, which has the nickname as the sailor's graveyard. So they want to make sure that you're going to be safe, especially when you go to Antarctica. And literally the ship is going in between icebergs and growlers. So I get it, but it was kind of a drag.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to the impressions of the ship. And we'd already been on an Atlas cruise line last year. We did the World Traveler. And so it is a similar ship concept. Pretty much the ship is identical. And the one thing that you'll know on any kind of an expedition ship, these ships are small. And it was a max capacity of 198 people. But even for Antarctica, Atlas caps this number at 150. And there are benefits to all of this.
Now, there's benefits, but you have to understand that if you have small ships, well, small ships have lots of motion, especially in bad weather, and especially going through the Drake Passage. Our Drake Passage crossing, we had anywhere between 5 to 6 meter surges, so there was lots and lots of motion. So while we usually do fine, sometimes we feel a little bit of queasy. I would recommend, if you're going to go across the Drake Passage and you are susceptible to motion sickness, go on and have your patches on before you even get to the Drake, as you're going off into the Beagle Channel. before you start the passage of the Drake Passage, just go ahead and put those on and save yourself a lot of issues.
And like the World Traveler, the ship that we were on last time, we found that this ship was just as nicely decorated. Very, very pretty. It feels like a river ship when you walk on, but it's very muted colors, but dark paneled wood. And it feels like a very nice boutique hotel. The public spaces were very comfortable. You could go to the Atlas Lounge or you could go up to the Dome Lounge, and the seating was very, very comfortable. And it was just very calming in a place like that. It was very nice.
Yeah, I love the lounges. Now, the Atlas Lounge, not only is this is a place where you have a lot of your entertainment, this is where you have the captain's reception, but this is also where you will stage when you're getting ready to do your landings. And then there is the Dome Lounge, that lounge that most ships have now, where you have that 270 degrees of ceiling to floor windows looking out. It was absolutely wonderful. And what is nice is they actually have, outside of that lounge, you have a deck area. So that's a wonderful place that you spend as you're going through Antarctica, looking at the whales or the seals or the icebergs and the beauty going by.
So one of the things we did not get to do this time was really take advantage of the outdoor space. Similar to our experience as it was on our last Atlas cruise, the weather was not really cooperating for you to really enjoy the outdoor areas. They had an outdoor grill, they had an outdoor bar area, they had a nice 2 hot tubs, and they had a heated pool. But when you're crossing the Drake, nobody was going outside and pretty much everything was locked down. But when we did have good weather, they had really nice hot tubs and a heated pool. We just didn't get to try the other stuff out.
Yeah, I tell you, those hot tubs really came in handy, just warming yourselves up off of some of the activities which we were talking about in a second. I'll tell you though, this is our second time we've been on Atlas. The first time is we were going around the northern portion of the British Isles, and it was cold. We really need to find a cruise on Atlas that goes like the Med or the Caribbean where it's warm, just to be able to take advantage of everything the ship gives you. But the one thing that we did take advantage of was the sauna. The sauna was probably one of the largest saunas we've had on any ship. It was huge. It was never busy. And what was really even better than that is it was hot. A lot of saunas on ships, they're not that the heat that you want. This one was hot. But the best thing is you had this huge window that you could look out as you're relaxing in the sauna, looking at the icebergs and the seals and the humpback whales go by.
So let's talk about the room itself. The stateroom that we had a balcony to it. It was beautifully decorated. It was very much like the room that we had on the World Traveler. There was plenty of room to relax. And again, like the last time we were on the World Traveler, the bathrooms here are amazing. Biggest bathrooms that I have seen on an expedition ship. Had a really large shower. It was really, really nice.
Yeah, the showers, you have the rainforest shower, you have jets. It was actually very nice. Another thing that is nice is they have lots of outlets, but there's an asterisk there. It has lots of electrical outlets in the room if you're prepared for 220 plugs. There's only one 110 plug in the room. So what I would recommend if you're going to go on any of the Atlas ships, make sure to bring those 220 to 110 adapters that you put in. If you do that, you'll have plenty of outlets in the room for everything. Another thing that I really liked about the World Navigator that was different from our time on the World Traveler was the storage. If you saw our review on the World Traveler and our UK cruise, one of the issues we had, there was almost no room for any of your folded clothes. There was no shelves. This was absolutely fantastic. What they had done is on the right side of one of the closets, they put in shelves from top to bottom, which made it much, much nicer. And that's kind of confusing to me is because the Traveler, which didn't have the shelves, is actually newer than the Navigator. So somewhere Atlas made the decision to take those out. I'll tell you, I love the storage that was in the World Traveler. Now, the other thing is you have a balcony. We had a B1 veranda. By the way, right up above Tracey, you're going to find the link for that. Our tour from that has a nice sized balcony. It wasn't really all that big. It was what you would expect. The one thing I would say is the seat was not what we found on the World Traveler. On the World Traveler, you had these wicker type of seats with really nice cushions. The seats that were on the Navigator were kind of the type you find on like a mass market line, which is kind of disappointed. But the reality is, because it was cold, we had about temperatures in the mid-30s. We would bundle up and go out there and look for a little bit. We didn't spend a lot of time at the balcony, so it really wasn't that much of an issue, but something to consider.
And let's talk now about service. And starting with our room steward, we had the best room steward. He was so helpful. And it is kind of interesting how the service worked on this particular cruise. So he would, he helped us fold up our parkas to get them ready to send them home. Anytime we were getting ready to go out on one of our excursions, our landings, he was one of the first people we saw as we were getting ready to go downstairs. And this kind of extended into the entire staff. It seemed like the whole staff was involved in the expedition experience. So you go downstairs and the bartenders are down there and the wait staff is down there and everybody is helping you get into your gear. So you're standing there, getting out to the outrigger boats. It was kind of a whole team effort. And that is something I have not seen before on a cruise.
Absolutely. When you're looking at that, it was some of the best service we have ever had on any ship. And I will tell you, it starts at the top. Nuno is what they call the general manager. Also, sometimes they call on other ships a hotel manager. Nuno, without any hesitation, I'll say, is the best hotel manager, general manager I've ever had on any ship. He was everywhere. He was the person that when we were boarding, was the guy that got onto the ship, onto the bus to tell us how we were going to board. He would be the one that when we were in the Atlas Lounge getting ready to stage, to go down to the mudroom to get ready to do our excursions, he's managing that. Plus, he's going all the way around. I see him going up to passengers, making sure everything's fine. And as soon as you say something, he was turning to a crew member and say, hey, listen, get this done. He was amazing. And I think that when you have leadership like that at the top, it just trickles down to what was a really, really great cruise. Now, while we were lukewarm about the food in the World Traveler, let's be honest, if you see any of our reviews, the food on cruise lines have been kind of really hit and miss. I will tell you that dinners in the dining room was easily some of the best we've had at sea, either before or after the pandemic.
And so one of the things that they did on the small expedition ships, you only have one real dining venue, and that is the main dining room. And the dining room, it's for dinner, it's full service dinner. And then at breakfast, it's kind of a quasi buffet where you can get eggs to order. And at lunchtime, it was decent. They always had like a carving station and a pasta station. They'd have a salad bar. They had a lot of vegan opportunities. We just kind of found that the food was good there, but sometimes we wish there was a little bit more variety.
Yeah, and I'm not vegan. In fact, if you've watched any of our reviews, you'll know I'm not a vegan because I usually talk about hamburgers. And I'll admit, at lunch, I have horrible diet. At dinner and breakfast, I do much better, but at lunch, I like having grilled food. The grilled food I like is having hamburgers. Now, one day on the buffet line, they had hamburgers, but usually they didn't have hamburgers on there. I know this sounds a little petty, but it's just something where you kind of expect for it. However, I did learn that if you ask your server, you actually can order a hamburger and they'll bring it out to you. But unfortunately, sometimes the service in the main dining room was kind of touch and go. There were two young women that were absolutely fantastic servers. They were amazing, but sometimes we had service that was a bit slow and quite frankly, sometimes inattentive.
And one of the things that they did have, so you did have the main dining room, but you also had outside of the dining room on the floor down, it's Paula's Pantry. And that is kind of the grab and go where you could get like sandwich wraps, or you could get muffins, or you could get cookies, or you could get like energy bars or energy drinks and your coffee. And so a lot of people did that for light snacks and bits. So that was another option available.
Yeah. Now, there's always room service, which is actually very fast. Every time we had room service, it could come about 20 minutes. So it was some of the fastest room service we ever had.
But it was a very limited menu. So you kind of went through the menu. If you did room service more than 2 times, you kind of tried everything on the menu that wasn't vegan.
Yeah, and if you get like the burger and fries, someone eats burgers, okay, you could get a burger on the room service menu, but what came with it was sweet potato fries. And I hate sweet potatoes. Now, once again, just like the hamburgers in the buffet, you can ask for regular potato fries, but if you don't know that, then what happens, you realize the menu is actually fairly limited.
And so So let's talk more about the entertainment. And the entertainment is more like what you would find on a river cruise. You do have a cruise director. His name was Michael. And funny, Michael was the first cruise director that we ever met on our very first cruise when we went to Tahiti many, many years ago.
He is the person that I always judge cruise directors against, because on our very first cruise during our honeymoon, many years ago, he was absolutely fantastic. And the saxophone player was very, very good. The problem was he only had one volume, and it was loud. And he was good. But the problem is he was so loud that if you were in the lounge when he was playing, you could not have a conversation with anyone in the room. And that was kind of disappointing. I always think of music like that as good to has a background music so you can be able to have conversations, which is one of the great things about the ship. And he just kind of like took away from that.
And part of the other entertainment things that you did have is you did have trivia in the afternoons, and that was fun. We like to play trivia. And they did have tea in the afternoon. We thought that that was very good. Probably one of the better tea services we've had at sea.
Yeah, but the real entertainment is Antarctica itself, which absolutely fully, without any hyperbole, exceeded our wildest expectations.
And the reason why Atlas limits the number of passengers, remember we had talked about it's 198 capacity, but they take 150. Well, when you are in Antarctica, there's an international treaty that says for each landing, only 100 people can be on a landing site. That is not only passengers, but that's also your expedition team.
So by having Atlas only having 150 passengers, what this means is they could split in the morning to two groups and have a landing in the morning, and then you can have a landing in the afternoon. So you get two landings every day. And so even some of the other expeditionary ships that go to Antarctica really basically will guarantee you one. Basically, you got twice as much in Antarctica because of the small size of Atlas.
And so we found our experiences when we did landings were amazing. We have a video on it, and one of the very first landing we did was walking on water, and it was ice sheet, and we got to see several groups of seals. Amazing. I could not have asked anything better.
Yeah, it was just absolutely amazing. And then, of course, then it stopped there is because we visited what is called Base W. This was a British research station that was there in the 1950s, but in 1959, it got packed in by ice and they had to march or hike 30 miles out. And because of that, they just left everything there except for what they needed for the hike out. So it's kind of like going on a time warp. You're transported back to 1959 because everything as they left it in 1959 is exactly how it was now, which is very cool.
And so because we were in the South Pole, we did not see any polar bears, but we saw lots and lots and lots of penguins. We went to 4 or 5 different landings, and we got to see 3 or 4 different types of penguins, thousands of them, rookeries everywhere. And I think one of the things that I will never forget was our sailing through the Lemaire Channel. It's just so peaceful and beautiful, and it was so calm. And we got to see plenty of humpback whales. Like, that is something that will be etched in my mind forever.
It was amazing. Now, I actually was able to talk Tracey into camping under the stars at night. After the end of one of the evenings, there was 20 of us guests. We got together, had a dinner, and then after dinner, we go down to the mudrooms, we pack up, we go into our Zodiacs, and we go to Antarctica. We had a penguins there as our welcoming committee, and Tracey and I then started digging our what they call coffin holes because there were no tents. All you are is in basically these holes that you dig into the snow. You have your sleeping bags and your liners, and you're laying down and you're just hoping it's not going to rain. We are fortunate. It was absolutely beautiful. At 3 o'clock in the morning, the stars came out. Absolutely beautiful. Now it's a little pricey. This is only one of the very few things that actually cost on there. We paid $500 per person to do this. I've heard that it's gone up to $750 now. I will tell you, for us, it was absolutely worth it. Would I do it again? No, because I've already done it before.
And so people always ask, like, how cold is Antarctica? I don't think we were ever really super, super cold when we were camping, but we did get a sense of how cold Antarctica can be when we did the polar plunge. And that was jumping into 28-degree water. It was so cold. I don't think I've ever been that cold.
Yeah, it was incredibly cold.
And beyond the beauty of being in Antarctica, I think what is so special to me of the experience was our expedition team. These are not rookies. These are people who know what they're doing. The leader of our team was a French guy named Jonathan, and this had been his 26th or 27th season in Antarctica. So he kind of knew all of the nooks and crannies of where to do landings at, and it was amazing.
Yeah, what happens is the expedition team leader actually works with the captain, and together they decide where you're going to do your landings. So it was fantastic. And just like we talk about Nuno as being that example that drives wonderful service, we see the same thing with Jonathan. He has an atmosphere on that expedition team, which is just, I don't know how they could be better. They were incredibly energetic. They were incredibly knowledgeable. Every day you would get 2 or 3 different briefings. It might be on penguins or whales or the political ramifications of how countries deal with the treaty and all that. Absolutely fantastic, and they were incredibly competent. Even with that ice sheet, when Tracey was talking about we were walking on water, we were on an ice sheet in the Crystal Sound, and all was underneath us was maybe 12 to 1,500 feet of water. It started cracking up while we're on there. We didn't worry at all because we had so much trust in our team members. They were just phenomenal. Now, one of the surprises we had about the ship was not just the atmosphere was by the crew, but also the passengers. The thing about this ship is it has one mission. Most of the time when you go on a cruise, you go to a port, you have some people do that excursion, some people do this excursion, some people walk in and do a DIY, into the city. Some people stay on the ship. On this type of cruise, everyone is doing the same thing. Everyone's going on a landing or a Zodiac cruise in the morning. Everyone's going on in the afternoon. And what happens is you come back to dinner. And it's one of the most relaxed atmospheres I've ever been on because you're not worried about what you're wearing at dinner. You're worried about just making sure you're able to go to dinner. You're going to meet with people and share the different things you saw. It was just incredible. I will tell you the one thing that is not relaxed is when you're doing a landing. When you're doing a landing, you have to understand if you're contemplating doing a cruise that is having landings, is these landings, if you're going to go to all the different areas you can go to, you're going to do hiking. You're going to do hiking uphill, and you're going to be hiking on snow, oftentimes where you do not have a very sure footing. So keep that in mind. Can someone with limited mobility go? If you can walk, yeah, you could probably do the landing, kind of be there, maybe walk to some areas, but you're not going to be able to do everything that everyone else is going to be able to do. Now, one of the issues is we always, when we do our reviews, we have our 3 ups and our 3 downs. We do that is because we never want to be a cheerleader for a line, and at the same time as we don't want to just talk about the bad on the line. By having 3 ups and 3 downs, it really keeps us honest in telling you the reality of this cruise. And this was difficult for this cruise in coming up with those 3 downs. So some of them get a little petty, and we'll take that criticism. The first one remains, and it is an issue, is the internet package. I'm not really talking about the internet itself. You're at 66 degrees south latitude. If you're at those latitudes, any type of satellite internet package is going to be kind of spotty. Going across the Drake was actually pretty good. But the issue is the package that Atlas has. They do give you free Wi-Fi, but all they do is give you 1 gigabyte of service. And now in today's world of social media, if you are checking Instagram, if you're checking email, if you're checking Twitter, or any of these social media, you can burn through that 1 gigabyte of service very, very quickly. It's just, I don't understand for a ship that just hits out of the park in so many areas, why they have an internet package that is kind of like what you had in the 1990s. My recommendation for Atlas is give everyone as much data as necessary, but if you need to, then what you do is you throttle down the speeds so that you cannot stream, and you can sell a package for streaming. That's what even some of the more premium lines are doing. I think it's a smarter way of doing that.
And then another down that we have, it's related to food, is the room service. Although it was fast, it was quite limited. So now you've taken away your grill, your outdoor grill, and then the room service. You could burn through the room service menu within 2 or 3 days. You kind of hit everything, and it just wasn't really inspired.
Yeah. Now, I talked to you about some of these downs are going to be kind of nitty gritty. It would be nice to be able to use the outdoor areas. And I know that's not Atlas's fault. It's just a matter of, you have to understand if you're going to do a cold weather cruise such as Antarctica, understand that you're not going to be able to take advantage of a lot that the ship is able to give you, whether that is the pool grill, the pool bar, sitting out by the pool, even some of the lounge areas, especially when you're going across the, I would say outdoor lounge areas. They have one in the back, which is absolutely beautiful, but you really don't get to use it because, well, you're going across the Drake Passage, and they would rather close that than have a passenger go over in, 12-foot waves. So, all right.
But like I said, with all the downs there weren't that many downs, but there were plenty of ups, starting with what?
The ship size. The ship size is just fantastic. It's not only that it was very easy to navigate, it's charming, but because it's so small, and you have so few passengers on it, you really get to meet not only your crew, but other passengers and really get to know them, which is absolutely fantastic.
And the next big up we have is the expeditions and the landings. The landings were just rock solid. They were the best. And this was all based upon the weather of the day. So the captain had to take in a lot of factors of the weather being the number one thing. And even when we weren't sure we were going to be able to do landings, they would find a way for us to do safe landings that were amazing. They also had paid for excursions that you could do, like camping and activities.
Camping
and kayaking and stuff like that. So those were the paid ones, but the unpaid ones that were included, the free ones, they were the best.
Yeah, which comes up to with value. Not only is the only thing that you would have to pay extra on this ship, you don't have to pay for drinks, you don't have to pay for food. The only thing you really have to pay for is if you want to do camping, or if you want to do kayaking, if you want to do paddle boarding. They have those are for a fee. Everything else is included. But also you look at the value. Antarctica is not a cheap proposition. You could do a mass market line where basically you do a drive-by, which you're not landing. But if you go on an expeditionary cruise in Antarctica, the normal for two people kind of starting out is about $35,000 to $40,000. All in, including what we spent on for camping, we spent $23,000. That's for the two of us. It is a steal of a value, just a fantastic opportunity. All right, so now we have so much to be able to show you. Go on and watch this playlist, and you'll see everything that we did from boarding to going through the Drake Passage, and of course, 30 minutes of just fantastic scenery and experiences in Antarctica. All right, keep on traveling.